Hey, welcome to another installment of Christ Over Coffee. I'm Pastor Chris Byers of St. John's Lutheran Church in beautiful Gillett, Wisconsin. I'm glad to have you with me here again as we continue on going through the Bible here. We're just going through Genesis. So we've gone through 16 chapters so far, and we've come to the whole fun between Sarai and Hagar and the birth of Ishmael and all that came about from that jealousy that did arise on there. So now we're going to move into the 17th chapter of Genesis. We're going to continue moving on, as we know that ended in the 16th, telling us and giving us that warning that, well, Ishmael was going to be a donkey to his brothers, and there was going to be problems. But he also was going to be blessed in the sense that he would also have 12 sons and would be very well blessed in the land. So Hagar goes back to be with Abram and Sarai. But now we're going to come into the 17th chapter, and I'm using the New American Standard Bible, 1995 version on there. It's one of those. This one has some interesting things. It kind of has some sounds. It goes to some of the King James style language in this part in particular, and you'll find that throughout with this one. Not all of them with the 95, but this is a Key Study Bible that I'm reading out of. But it also lets you hear things a little differently. But I'd ask you to grab whatever Bible you use, and we're going to read. And, you're going to hear differences here and there, but it's good to note. You can always put in in the comments if you have questions or anything like that, or you can send me an email, and we can talk about those things. And I hope if you find this to be something you've enjoyed, press the like button and feel free to share it. So now we're going to start with the 17th chapter, first verse. Now when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. So this is 13 years after the birth of Ishmael. Here we have it beginning here. I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, and I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly. So God is revisiting the covenant that he made with Abram when he walked through the sacrifice of all the animals, and he walked through with the lamb and promised that he would make him a father of many nations, where his descendants would be more numerable than the stars in the sky. He'd also said his descendants would be more numerable than the grains of sand. So we're going to find here he's reminding Abram of the covenant he made. I am the God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, and I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, father of many, or father of nations, but your name shall be Abraham, father of a multitude. For I will make you the father of a multitude of nations, and I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come forth from you. A reestablishment, saying, this is the blessing I'm pouring on you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your descendants after you. Now, Abram, he's Abraham. He had been living 13 years. He was happy. He had his son Ishmael. He had his son, so there he has an heir. And we're going to find out as it goes forward. It says, And I will give to you and your descendants after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. God said further to Abraham, Now as for you, you shall keep my covenant, and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. every male among you shall be circumcised. So now we have this wonderful thing of circumcision. I do want to share something I did share with the group here, just kind of giving us a timeline of where I'd been before. And we had done this. I'd done this. We talked about this. I am a creationist. This is the chronological line. This is following Usher's timeline we're seeing here, kind of giving the variation, the final call, to Babylon, Israel. We got all the dates, but we put it down and going backwards about 4,000 years from the birth of Jesus to creation. We did about 4004 BC. That's the Usher date on there. And the reason it follows that is you got from the flood, you're looking about 1656 years. And those numbers come from the math of the generations up through Noah and his 600th year. So here we get all those generations. Methuselah was 969 years old when he died, which was a year before the flood. And then we go forward from there at the 600th year of Noah, and the flood would come. And then we start from there going through all the generations throughout that. And this is the Usher's model on there. Now there are others that are out there that were there. The oldest model would put it about another almost 2,000 years. So that would put it about 5,800 BC, all the way down to just under 4,000 years. But this is the Usher model that is very commonly used to kind of give us that mindset, that dating that we can look at as we look at the biblical account and trusting in what the biblical account says. And we want to be thoughtful of that because God's word is the word in which we should define our life. And there are things in here. Now, I know evolutionists and those of old earth mindset do laugh at this, and they think that it's not being true to science. However, really, if you look at the numbers, you look at the dating, you're going to find that there is some actual, there's some, we're using, science is the pursuit of knowledge, and the science of that is looking at, well, what has God given to us? We're using the Word of God as our guide to help us to understand His creation and also work within that construct there to see where God and what God is doing and how God is blessed. So that was just something I'd like to share there as we go on. Got the wrong one there. And so we're going to kind of look through and we're going to continue on as we go on. It's just something I shared on there, and I urge you, you can always look and you can look at the various models out there. Africanus is the oldest, is the one that goes about the oldest on there, which is just under 6,000 BC, just shorter. So that'd put us more to about 8,000 years. But we can look through that, and you can look through that biblically. It does explain it very clearly. But I would urge you to look at the Usher model to understand that. But we're gonna continue on. So here the promises go. Now I'm sure Abraham, he's probably thinking, oh yes, well thank you God, you've given me this great son, Ishmael. I'm so blessed with him, and he's my great blessing. I know there's some issues between Hagar and Sarah, but we know that there's many blessings here. So he says, all right, so here's the covenant. Now we get the circumcision, which literally is to cut the tip off. And basically we learn here, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and you. Now this is a symbol, this is a sign, something in which every Jew, everybody of Abraham, descendants of Abraham, actually not just Jews, but all descendants of Abraham must follow. But it isn't for Gentiles and it's not for women. It's only for men. And this is the establishment of the law, the covenant there. So we want to look there. So this is, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin. So, and every male among you who is 8 days old shall be circumcised throughout your generations. A servant who is born in the house or is bought with money from any foreigner who is not of your descendants. A servant who is born in your house or who is bought with your money shall surely be circumcised. So this is now saying even those that are in the house now are going to be under the promise, under the covenant. So he's bringing all in the household. Gentiles outside? No. Women? No. But women are brought in through marriage, through their husbands. Thus shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. But an uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Now, this is the first covenant through Abraham that we find throughout all of the generations that follow. Now, this is different as Paul points it out in there. This changes in Christianity, and Paul speaks of this because now in Christianity and all that, the symbol that is done through the physical is now a symbol of the heart and through the faith. Now, baptism is not that. It is not a sign of circumcision or a new circumcision. Baptism is a new adoption. It's something where we are brought into the family through the waters of baptism, washed and renewed, and given the fullness of the promises of Christ in those waters. So that's where we find that's also the baptism and circumcision are also different in that sense too. All right. Then God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you shall. Sarai also means princess. So that's an interesting understanding. But you shall call her name, not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall become a mother of nations. Sarah, the mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. But God said, no, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac, which also means of laughter. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants. Now, boom. All right. Ishmael's not the one of promise. This child to be born to Sarah will be the child of promise. But my covenant, and then he says, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you, because he says, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. No, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, you shall call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. But God hears and says, and as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall become the father of 12 princes. He won't be king. They won't be kings. He's a prince. Isaac will be the king. All the others will be princes. The younger son, the younger boy, will be the one of promise. Isaac is not the child of promise, but your youngest son, your second born, but firstborn to Sarah, will be the child of promise. Because Sarah's the chosen wife, Sarah's the chosen mother, and Isaac is the chosen son. And out of him there will be, because out of her the kings will come. So here is where God is stepping it up. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year. So in a year from now, you're going to have a son. His name will be Isaac. Remember that. Laughter. What? Me? And we're going to see that come up later too, right? When he finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. So God went away. Then Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all the servants who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's household, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin. And the very same day as God had said to them, all the men, now Abraham, 99 years old, is being circumcised. But this is a sign, it's a symbol of the covenant that God had made with his people, these chosen people. This is to set them apart. They're definitely, everybody who is born of Abraham is set apart, and it's very clear, especially at the time of the Greeks later on, and I'm sure within cultures of this time, if they had any other competition, special competition, it would be very quickly known. All right, now Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And the very same day Abraham was circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his household who were born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner were circumcised with him. So here we have the promise. Now we're moving into the 18th chapter. So we've gotten all this. The birth of Isaac is promised. Now, this is, again, building on each other. This is about a year. Now we're looking at about 9 months, 10 months prior within this time. Now, the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre while he was sitting at the tent door in the heat of the day, and when he lifted up his eyes and looked, behold, 3 men were standing opposite him, and when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the earth, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in your sight, please do not pass your servant by. So here we know that Abraham recognizes one of the 3 men, God, and he knows that the 2 others with him are also with him. So these are angels, and God are there before him. I'd say many would look and say these are definitely angels, but then we have one that he definitely recognizes, which is the one is the face, the voice of God. Could be an angel, God himself. That's not necessarily. We know that Abraham has a special relationship with God, so God has definitely visited him. He knows to speak to him. All right. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will bring a piece of bread, that you may refresh yourselves. After that you go on, since you have visited your servant. And they said, So do as you have said. All right. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly, prepare 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make bread cakes. A nice offering to God. 3 measures of flour, make the bread cakes. Abraham also ran to the herd, took a tender and choice calf, top animal of his flock here, and gave it to the servant. He hurried to prepare it, took curds and milk and the calf, which he had prepared, and placed it before them, and he was standing by them under the tree as they ate. A gift to God, an offering to God. Kind of helps you think of the temple, right? Then they said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door, which was behind him. Now Sarah and Abraham are old, advanced in age. Sarah was past childbearing. All the things that would say childbearing was good were gone. She wasn't having anything to say she could bear children. She was in menopause. And Sarah laughed to herself. Parody now, right? We've got Abraham laughs, Sarah laughs. All right? To herself, saying, After I have become old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also? And the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I indeed bear a child when I am so old? Is anything too difficult for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. Well, actually, and the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I indeed bear a child when I am so old? And then here God says to her, Is anything too difficult for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. And Sarah denied it, however, saying, I did not laugh. How often do we try to hide things from God, right? For she was afraid, and he said, No, but you did laugh. Then the man rose up from there and looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham was walking with them to send them off. And the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and in him all the nations of the earth will be blessed. For I have chosen him in order that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, in order that the Lord may bring upon Abraham what he has spoken about him." And the Lord said, "The outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is exceedingly grave." Now here they're talking with one another. God is talking to the angels there with them, those that are walking with them. Now do I reveal this to Abraham? His nephew Lot's in there. He's going to be great. Then the men, "I will go down and see if they have done entirely according to its outcry, which has come to me, and if not, I will know." Okay, God definitely would know. He knew their hearts. But here is an opportunity, right? This is something that we can hold to ourselves. Is God giving us an opportunity to pray. Then the men turned away from there and went down to Sodom while Abraham was still standing before the Lord. And Abraham came near and said, "Wilt thou indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Are you going to take the good ones away with the bad? God, no, you're going to have mercy, right?" How often we think of that when we go, well, what about those, Lord, that do not know God or ever hear the gospel? If they never have a chance to hear the gospel, will they also be damned? I mean, really, are we worrying about, well, okay, God, are we going to only save those that hear? What if they don't have an opportunity? So, suppose there are 50 within the city. Wilt thou indeed sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from thee to do such a thing, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly? God, you're fair. You should never. Why? I can't believe in a God that would punish those that are innocent. I mean, who's righteous? How do we define righteousness? So the Lord said, "If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare the whole place on their account." And Abraham answered and said, "Now behold, I have ventured to speak to the Lord, although I am but dust. Suppose the 50 righteous are lacking 5. Wilt thou destroy the whole city because of 5? And he said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45 there." And he spoke to him yet again and said, "Suppose 40 are found there." And he said, "I will not do it on account of the 40. Then he said, "Oh, may the Lord not be angry, and I shall speak. Suppose 30 are found there." And he said, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." And he said, "Now behold, I have ventured to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there." He said, "I will not destroy it on the account of 20. Then he said, "Oh, may the Lord not be angry, and I shall speak only this once. Suppose 10 are found there." And he said, "I will not destroy it on the account of 10. And as soon as he had finished speaking to Abraham, the Lord departed, and Abraham returned to his place. So here are the negotiations. We find this negotiation. God, if you find even just 10, will you be merciful? Will you be gracious? And it's the same in our nature as we are called to seek mercy for all, right? We're called to seek mercy because that is part of our faith, is we want God to be merciful to those, but we don't deserve, and no one deserves the mercy. None are righteous, right? No one is righteous, not even one. So here we move. And now this is something that somebody else caught in class, and it's good to think about. Because there were three that were with Abraham. The 19th chapter begins like this. Now the 2 angels, so now we know, 2 angels, 1 God, right? God was there, the angels now enter into Sodom. And Gomorrah is attached to this. Sodom and Gomorrah are twin cities, and they, even though it'll say Sodom, but it also means Gomorrah, because Gomorrah is going to be punished also. Gomorrah. Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening as Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. And he said, Behold, my lords, please turn aside into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early and go on your way. They said, however, no, we shall spend the night in the square. Now here Lot's saying, you don't want to spend the night here. Come to my house. Let me keep you safe. Yet he urged them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered this house. And he prepared a feast for them, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Now Lot knew that this was not a place for them that would be safe. We have to wonder why here, why he stayed, knowing that this was there. But he liked it there. He was not so appalled that he had to leave himself, but he knew that this was not a safe place for guests. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, both young and old, all the people from every quarter. So every man, young and old, came to Lot's home. They called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may have relations with them. So this is something about this community. In Sodom and Gomorrah, I'm sure this probably happened a lot, if this is what's happening to these men. So Lot's aware of this, but it wasn't so appalling that Lot felt it was necessary to leave. He may not agree with it fully, but he wasn't enough appalled by it to have to leave. But Lot went out to them at the doorway and shut the door behind him and said, Please, my brothers, do not act wickedly. Do not do this sodomy. Right? Do not do this to them. These are men. Don't rape them. Don't do this. Now behold, I have 2 daughters who have not had relations with man. Please let me bring them out to you and do to them whatever you like. Do to my daughters whatever you want. It's okay. I'll offer you my daughters. Just don't do these men, right? Only do nothing to these men, inasmuch as they have come under the shelter of my roof. I've offered protection. I've offered shelter. Here, take my daughters instead. So we know that Lot's not really a righteous man, even in this sense, is he? And this is something that all the men, young and old, are a part of. But they said, Stand aside. Furthermore, they said, This one came in as an alien. You've lived here a long time. You were saved. Now, you think about this. This is around 15 years or so after they'd been saved through Abraham. They probably gave praise to God about their salvation, but they weren't enough. We didn't believe strong enough to turn away from things that they knew was against God. They knew that they didn't have that strong enough of faith on there. So they were turning back so quickly. How quickly they forget. How quickly they turn away and turn to things that are not of God. Right? How quickly that happens with us sometimes if we're not focusing on God. If we don't place our hearts and our lives in God's care and His conviction, then it's easy to fall away. All right. And already he is acting like a judge. Now we will treat you worse than them. So they pressed hard against Lot and came near to break the door. But the men reached out their hands. So these 2 angels that looked like men, reached out their hand and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves trying to find the door. And the men said to Lot, Whom else have you here? A son-in-law and your sons and your daughters, and whomever you have in the city, bring them out of the place. For we are about to destroy this place, because their outcry has become so great before the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Lot went out. So here, now I was assuming in the better nature of, well, maybe the sons-in-laws weren't such bad guys. But you think about it, saying all the men, young and old, were out there. So the sons-in-laws would have been part of this group that was wanting these angels, these men they saw. But he went to his sons-in-laws who were to marry his daughters and said, "Up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city." But he appeared to his sons-in-law to be jesting. So they didn't take him serious. They didn't believe him. And they would have been, and as was pointed out in class, they would have heard that their future spouses were being offered up for everybody else's pleasure. And when morning dawned, the angels urged Lot. So Lot didn't want to leave, right? Saying, "Up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city." But Lot hesitated. He hesitated. So the men seized his hand and the hand of his wife, the hands of his 2 daughters, for the compassion of the Lord was upon him. And they brought him out and put him outside the city. So they brought him out because he's Abraham's nephew. Not because Lot was really wanting to go. He and his family, they're like, "Well, this is our home. Why are we going to leave this place? I love this house. Yeah, the city could be better, but it's home. We're used to it. Our friends are here. They're not that bad once you get to know them." But here they're being told leave, but they're not doing so helpfully there. It came about when they had brought them outside, that one said, "Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, and do not stay anywhere in the valley. Escape to the mountains, lest you be swept away." Get out of here. Don't look back. Run. This is not a place you want to be. Lot said to him, negotiations here. "Oh no, my lords. Now behold, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have magnified your loving kindness, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountains, lest the disaster overtake me and die. Now behold, this town is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Look, there's a little town over there. Please let me escape there. Is it not small? That my life may be saved. Just let me go to this little town. I don't want to live in the mountains. I probably won't make it." He said to him, "Behold," and the angel said to him, "Behold, I grant you this request, also not to overthrow the town of which you have spoken." Okay, fine. Get to that town. "Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive there." Therefore, the name of the town was called Zoar. All right. So they're allowed to go to Zoar. The sun had risen over the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. So smell like sulfur. Terrible. And he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But his wife, from behind him, looked back. "Oh, my home." She became a pillar of salt. No life in her. Destructive to the soil. Now the Dead Sea is right there. Now at this time it's probably not the Dead Sea. It probably has some life in it. But the Dead Sea became the Dead Sea because it had no outlet. So all the salt water came in and it left all the salt, which destroyed and killed all life because it became far too salty. And you got pillars of salt there in that area. Here, something that can also preserve can also destroy, take away. And she is worthless. Soil in which she stood was no longer valuable. And she was looking back. She was looking back at a life that there was no life there. Now Abraham arose early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before the Lord and looked. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward the land of the valley, and he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land ascended like the smoke of a furnace. There weren't 50 righteous. There weren't 10 righteous. It's gone. Thus it came about when God destroyed the cities of the valley, and God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived. Okay. Now, Lot's now cast out. They've gone to Zoar. His wife is a pillar of salt. And Lot went up from Zoar and stayed in the mountains, and his 2 daughters with him, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. After what had happened, he didn't want to get connected or have any bad things happen there. He stayed in the cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old." And this is where the you factor comes in, right? Our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come in to us after the manner of the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and let us lie with him, that we may preserve our family through our father. You. Okay. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. And it came about on the morning after that the firstborn said to the younger, "Behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drink wine tonight also. Then you may go in and lie with him, that we may preserve our family through our father." So they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. And the firstborn bore a son, and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And as for the younger, she also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the sons of Ammon to this day. And this becomes very important because the Moabites and the Ammonites are enemies of Israel later on. And they are out of the descendants of Lot, that were born of Lot through Lot's daughters. Now, 20th chapter. Now Abraham journeyed from there toward the land of the Negev and settled between Kadesh and Shur. Then he sojourned in Gerar. Why did he go to Gerar? Doesn't say, other than maybe he didn't feel comfortable staying close to where he could look down and see the burning rubble. It might have smelled terrible, getting a little bit away, so he moves. He goes to Gerar, and Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, "She is my sister." So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream of the night and said to him, "Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is married." Now Abimelech had not come near to her, and he said, "Lord, wilt thou slay a nation even though blameless? Did he not himself say to me, 'She is my sister'? And she herself said, 'He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and in the innocence of my hands, I have done this." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that in the integrity of your heart you have done this, and I also kept you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her." So here we got Abraham up to his wily things. We remember that in Egypt. Now again with Abimelech and Gerar. All right. "Now therefore restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours." So Abimelech arose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their hearing, and the men were greatly frightened. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done." And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What have you encountered, that you have done this thing?" And Abraham said, "Because I thought, surely there is no fear of God in this place. They will kill me because of my wife." Now you got to realize, she's 90 years old, or she's pushing 90 there. She's getting up there in the years. But she still is somebody who's very attractive in the eyes of many. Besides, she is actually my sister. So here we get a further understanding of why he says this. And but she is actually the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came about, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, this is the kindness which you will show to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother." So Now, this was pointed out in class also in a very good way, that you think about this, is we don't know. We only have two accounts. We know this is done, but this could have happened in multiple areas. We know that Abraham becomes quite wealthy. So this may be more than the two accounts that we read. We don't really know that for sure. But we also know that this is something that is done, and we're going to read more on this as far as with Abimelech and that as we go on. Abimelech then took sheep and oxen, male and female servants, gave them to Abraham, and restored his wife Sarah to him. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before you, settle wherever you please. And to Sarah he said, Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, it is your vindication before all who are with you, and before all men you are cleared. Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maids, so they bore children. Now, we didn't say what the curse would be other than he would not be able to live any longer. He'd be dead. Well, he wouldn't have any, but so here it's known, it's made clear that there would be no offspring had this not been forgiven. For the Lord had closed fast all the wombs of the household of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Now we start with the 21st. Then the Lord took note of Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he promised. So Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time of which God had spoken. So we know this was very quickly. Here all this happens. Sarah conceives and bears a son. So we come here in this period. We have the conception, and then we have 9 months later the birth of Isaac here. So very quickly in this period of time we know that Isaac is conceived and born. All right. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. Then Abraham circumcised his son, Isaac, when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him, and Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. She said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. So we know, we're looking here, now we come to a point. So here we have Isaac, and then the weaning and all of this. So we're looking at, he has his other son, which is 16. He's probably 16 or 17 at this point. So now Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, with Ishmael. So we have Ishmael, who's about 16, maybe 17, whom she bore to Abraham mocking. Therefore she said to Abraham, Drive out this maid and her son, for the son of this maid shall not be an heir with my son Isaac. And the matter distressed Abraham greatly because of his son. But God said to Abraham, Do not be distressed because of the lad and your maid. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her, for through Isaac your descendants shall be named. And of the son of the maid I will make a nation, also because he is your dependent. So he's reminding Abraham that his promise is going to be fulfilled. He made a promise. Ishmael will have 12 children. He will have 12 princes. He will have 12 sons, princes. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar and put them on her shoulder and gave her the boy and sent her away. Now we know he's 16 or 17 years old, and she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water in the skin was used up, and she left the boy under one of the bushes. Now he's 16 or 17. He's not a little baby. So then she went and sat down opposite him about a bowshot away, for she said, Do not let me see the boy die. She sat opposite him and lifted up her voice and wept. God heard the lad crying, and the angel called her to Hagar from heaven and said to her, What is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him by the hand, for I will make a great nation of him. So he's not some little boy, though. He's like 16. He's a teenager. So then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and he lived in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So here Ishmael is married to an Egyptian. Now it came about at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me, here by God, that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my offspring, or with my posterity, but according to the kindness that I have shown to you, you shall show to me, and to the land in which you have sojourned. So he's not in Canaan, but we also are going to point on here. He's outside, he's in Gerar. And he's been staying there sojourning. And Abraham said, I swear it. But Abraham complained to Abimelech because of the well of water which the servants of Abimelech had seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing, neither did you tell me, nor did I hear of it until today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. Then Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Abimelech said to Abraham, What do these 7 ewe lambs mean, which you have set by themselves? And he said, You shall take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, in order that it may be a witness to me that I dug this well. Therefore he called that place Beersheba, because there the two of them took an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, arose and returned to the land of the Philistines. Now that's also important to remember. Philistines are already here. They're already in the land of Canaan, in that area. They're going to be. That's also important to remember, because it's pointing, we've got the Moabites, the Ammonites, and the Philistines. 3 of the main big enemies of Israel are already present at the time of Abraham. And Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines for many days. All right. So next time we're going to start out with the 22nd chapter as we learn more of that. But we're going to continue on. Now remember on here, it's good to go through the scriptures just a little bit, talking through the verses. What's coming, what strikes out to you, and always ask the questions and just be reading it plainly in a positive way, because there God works, and sometimes hearing it just read aloud will work through that. Now I hope you found this to be interesting, because there are some great points that were put out here, never thought about, and as you talk and in conversations with the Word, because as we read the Word, remember we are in conversation with God. We are in conversation with all those who have followers before. We continue moving on through the scriptures. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you continue. If you feel like this has been great, feel free to share this and like this. Subscribe for every time that we come. And I hope that you enjoy this. And remember always that Jesus loves you. So do I. Have a great week.